We back with another one. You know, getting into situations, talking about things, um, having issue with a lot of people. Sometimes people have a lot of issue with just life in general, and they want to do better for themselves. They want to get themselves into a good position. You know, shout out to Gold People with the 9 laws of self-governance. Law number 3: apply selflessness, because you got to think about yourself. But then there's times where it has to be turned off. What's going on, Kay? Hey man, I was just running over your video, man. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting into something like that down here, but I would do more or less in the suburb area. Probably going towards out Conyers, not in the city of Atlanta, because I know they kind of big. But yeah, thinking about that. But nevertheless, you got to think about yourself. But more or less, when you have kids, or let's say you don't have kids, this goes for people who don't have kids as well, have nieces and nephews. You know, there was an old song back in the day, "We are the world, we are the future." And all right, I appreciate that. I stay on top of it. And with that song, "We are the world, we are the future," it was more or less reaching out to everybody to deal with the kids. First and foremost, being married and doing things with my wife. But my biggest priority is teaching my kids, getting financially stable for my kids, doing things right for my kids, you know, because at the end of the day, they are the world, they are the future, you know. I have to sit here and, plan things out for them. They're too young to plan for themselves. So, it came a time when I was young and I had family members telling me what I was going to do, going to college and, going into a trade or going into, any profession. They were trying to guide me and put me in position in which they want, until I got to a degree where some of the adults that was in my family was like, what do you want to do? And it took me, you know, for a spin to where my life actually evolved into thinking about doing something different than what my family was trying to push me into, but more or less what I particularly wanted to get into for myself. So that changed things for me. And, I try to do that as much as I can for my kids, kind of guide them a little bit, but overall, let them have a choice. You know, some people don't get that choice. What's going on, Clay? But some people don't get that choice, and so that's why we have situations to where, you know, a lot of times helping these kids. That's because one of my biggest aspects on, trying to have conversation about money is for the adults to learn something and then pass it down to their kids, pass it down to their nieces and nephews if no kids, because when it comes down to it, you're an uncle, you're an auntie, you're a cousin. You're supposed to be in position for these kids to come to you and talk to you about things, to where if you don't know the answer, you can seek guidance, or if you do know the answer, properly give them the information to grow. You know, I talk about this all the time. Some generations, kids don't know. You know, prime example with me, I always give myself examples. Staying with my grandmother. My grandmother didn't know too much about finance. You know, and there's a different class of workers, and then there's a different class in professional entrepreneurs. When I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I would talk to my granddad because he had his own business. We would have conversations about, man, having to make how's it going, to do this and do that. You know, make sure you have the money for your material. Make sure you have good customer service. You know, that's one of the things I pride myself too with is having great customer service when dealing with people because, you know, that was pushed upon me with my grandfather telling me that, you know, good customer service goes a long way. That's how you get repeat customers. And also, that's how you build your clientele because those customers will tell other people to a degree you won't even have to promote. It'll just be from word of mouth. Yeah. And when it comes down to it, hardly, I would say 80% of us didn't know anything when it come to money. Like I always use my friend as an example, you know, and he's married to his wife. He said when he actually went into his relationship, never had a credit card. The thing was taught to him was don't get a credit card because credit cards are nothing but, you know, a pit. It'll draw you under this and that. And so he's under the impression never get a credit card. Don't use a credit card. But far as with him dealing with his wife is telling him, you know, I got credit. I use credit. Credit is this, credit is that. So from what he's been told, credit is a bad investment. His wife coming into the relationship, high, I think it was like the high 780, 90, almost 800 credit score. Credit score always was big. Big Bob, what's going on, man? Always had a good credit score ever since he known her. He said she goes and buy cars. All her interest rates are in the single digits. You know, he went and got something approved for a car. It was in the double digits. She laughed and said, "Oh, I don't do that. What is that?" You know, and you know he felt a little way, but at the same time, and we was laughing, and I was talking to him, and he was saying that she grew up in that life. She grew up knowing how to use credit out the gate. You know, and I told him her parents probably put her on their cards as authorized users. I learned that trick from someone talking about credit online. That's why I say I laugh and I joke online. You know, I'm on other channels I'm cutting up, but on my channel I try to give more information than entertainment. You know, I tell you guys how many I can't tell you how many times I've been on different YouTube channels, and I've learned so much regarding credit. I've learned so much regarding finance, investing, just a slew of things. Buying houses. They got so many new programs out here. People think that the programs that they got out here now is just something new, or is it this, or these programs they got out here now, whole new world. Like they literally come in the gate. You can buy a house, no money down, and if you have a good broker or a good agent that can work with you and get deals done, they can get you a house just like a veteran. Most veterans can go to the table, no money, no closing costs, and walk away because that's VA loan is guarantee you that you can walk away with no closing costs, no down payment, house owned outright. But the point is you're gonna have a high high mortgage because you didn't put anything down. But you also can come back and refinance, put some money down, and get your interest rate lower. It's just rules and tricks of the trade. You know, this stuff we're not learned. You know, back in the day, I remember they used to teach a class. When I was in I think it was fifth grade. We learned about checks, learn about balancing the checkbook. We're learning about nowadays they have it to where, gee, money, long time, man. How that money up there in Canada flowing? But back in the day, they used to teach us how to balance a checkbook, how to write out a check. Now that's not done. You know, what the kids are learning. You don't have to balance out a checkbook. You have a bank that gives you all their transactions online. You know, but what are the number one? I said this last week. The number one thing how a lot of people, especially the youth, get overdrafts on the weekend. That account never pulls out the money like that until that Monday. So if you overspend, that's how you get caught up. Told a story about myself as an example. I sit up there, overdraft on my account. I had 15, I think that was like literally seven, but I was, kind of upset. 15, but it was over seven overdrafts. And it was crazy. And I talked to the bank. They end up taking them all down except two of them, to the point they were trying to charge me for something. They weren't just going to take all of them down, but the thought of them actually running this game to try to get over on me. That's the thing. A lot of people got to, if you know what you know, they won't take advantage of it. And that's the whole thing, learning stuff and teaching it to the kids. Learning not to overdraft. Most of the weekends now, if I'm doing a lot of big purchases and I know my account, cool. Other than that, I use cash. Pull out cash, use my cash. You know, transactions, they can get, slipped in real easy, especially when you have those automatic pays. That's why I don't like those. And if I do have them, I have them coming out of one account, and I have that one account with a certain amount that needs to be in there at all times, so I can know, okay, this account is set up for everything that automated to come out. I'm gonna have this account $500 guaranteed. That's all the bills for that $500. I got to keep that account set up at $500. Otherwise, I might get an overdraft. Might get an overdraft. Another thing, having your, bills and everything lined up right. That's why I talk about finance. That's why I talk about doing your bills, writing out everything, getting you books. They have apps for this, to a point where when everything is set up, you don't have no discrepancies when it comes down to it, because you already have it set up to where I'm gonna pay these bills this week. I'm gonna pay these bills this week. Prime example, I got a cousin. He pay all his bills from the first to the fifth. If the bill isn't out, he guesstimates it. First to the fifth. He said, if you're gonna pay your mortgage, the first week, pay all your bills around that same time. So the previous month, all those bills, you pay them all out. And if you paid it previously before or something, there you go. Have a situation to where you pick times where you pay your bills, or your bill is due, pay at that time. If you have the money, cool. If you don't, manage your money wisely. See, that's the thing. A lot of us are not managing our money wisely because we didn't learn this from our parents. Like I told you, my cousin that does that, his mom went to school for an accountant. I got bits and pieces of that because I would technically go over there to the house and talk to him. My cousin's older than me. My cousin got me by 12 years. But going over there to his house, seeing his mom doing stuff and showing him how to save money, showing him how to do things with money, you know, that helps. You know, Queena, Sweet Thumb, new to the chat. Yeah, I haven't seen you before. But yeah, knowing how to use your money is the key. Shout out to Alonzo Hall, All Star Advisor. He's talking about envelope stuffing now, and saying that versus taking the money that you're stuffing into an envelope, put it in the bank. If something happens to your home, is that money protected? And then to a degree, you putting so much money in the bank, that's a red flag to the IRS, you know? And he was talking about the different accounts. I have a PNC. PNC automatically gives you 3 accounts. They give you a growth count, a reserve count, and a checking count. Most of the time, you use the growth count account for bigger purchases, and the reserve technically is used for smaller purchase. You know, some big as a house, you will put it in a growth account and let it sit over time. Some small as saving up for a sofa or a bed, there you go. Or just in general, if you want to, save money, pick either of the accounts and go from there. Let that account be nothing but just savings, not touching. The other account be for things that you want to purchase over time. So having, the way to put things in perspective, a lot of times you just got to know. And that's the whole point of us having these conversations to where we can teach the kids. You know, there's certain things I learned. First thing, I can't wait to go show my kids that. Shout out to Gold Professor, the 9 laws of self-govern. Tell my kids all the time, you gotta have discipline. You gotta have that discipline. Without that discipline, what are you gonna be doing? How are you gonna carry yourself? How are you gonna, influence others? You know, I tell my sons, you're supposed to be the leaders. If it's a situation go on, you know, technically speaking, people should be looking at you and your decision. And just giving them some type of clarification on, you know, I'm teaching you things, showing you things to be respectful. There's no reason I should get a teacher come to me talking about how disrespectful and bad you are, because I don't teach you that, and you shouldn't learn that or implement something like that around your friends, because I tell my kids all the time, you're a reflection of me. Things you do in school, things you do out in public, it's a reflection of me teaching you or giving you something. If I'm not giving you nothing, I'm not teaching you nothing, then that's going to be a hit on me. That's why I always teach and show my kids. I tell them, you show out in school, you got to answer to me when you get home. Anything you do out in public, you disrespect a parent or a teacher, you in trouble. You know, tell them all the time, Mr. and Mrs. Yes, sir, no, sir. We have situations to where, hey, kids get, a little loose and, just kids being kids. But then that's the whole thing of parents being parents to put them back in their place. So more or less, I have situations where I always constantly have to get on my kids and, reflect on them. Boss lady Denise in the building, what's going on? And having conversations with them, ultimately, yeah, when it comes down to the generational gap thing, a lot of us, we kind of, straddle the fence with that because our parents have done so much. They put us in a position to win, and it's just a lot of times we, kind of drop the ball because we didn't, do what it took to actually, go to the next level. Or our parents didn't put us in position to win to where we could have, did what we did in order to win. That's what I was just talking about earlier about having money. These situations about having money, a lot of us, don't really understand that our parents, some of them, they didn't know. Some of our parents don't know how to use money and spend money. Some of our parents, they barely got by. And that was the thing. Like in some cases, how can my parents teach me about stock when they didn't have no stocks? How can my parents teach me about balancing books and when they live from check to check? You know, they only can teach what they know, and the things that they don't know, they really can't teach it to, for the most part, because you know it's like the blind leading the blind. How can I tell you, influence you how to get into something, and I'm not doing it myself? I have no idea of it. I pretty much don't know the first thing in doing it, but I'm literally trying to guide you into be a better person with your finance about investing. I don't know myself, you know, and that's the thing. A lot of people do this. They will sit here, tell you that they want to learn this, they will want to do this, and when it comes down to it, they don't even know themselves. But I'm gonna put it on mute for a minute. Hold on one moment. Sorry about that. It's getting my food and they play music in there, so want to play this music all in there. But yeah, we have a lot of situations to where, our parents, I'm not saying that our parents were dumb and they weren't they weren't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but they were limited to the things that they can do or deal with when it comes to us. Hey, Pashawars, good morning. Bronze, what's going on? But they were limited to what they can do for us and how they can teach us and things of that nature. Because when it came down to it, they didn't know as much. Back in during the time of Jim Crow, a lot of the parents, they were limited to their education. You know, Grandparents. My grandmother, she completed the 7th grade. Anytime that you wanted to go past that in the town they were in, they only had high schools in the big city. My grandma and them came from a small city, so her education stopped at that. But by the time her sister was coming along, there was a high school being built there. So her younger brother and sister went to high school, completed high school, went to college. That's why I say my aunt went to college. End up, you know, went in for communication and business. Started her own business. She had her own business, and my grandma, she just was a worker. She went and got a job and provided for the family and things of that nature and worked on that. Yeah. um, a lot of times these kids are so far advanced. I've actually talked with my son, and I had my money invested in the crypto account, and I told him me and him was doing it together. He kept telling me to take the money out. He was like, we up. Um, wasn't a couple of thousand, but a couple of hundred. He's like, take the money out and let's hold it and see what the market does. And I'm like, this kid don't know what he's talking about. I'm teaching him this stuff. And boy, was I wrong. If I would have actually listened to him, I probably would have had that amount still. But because I didn't, and me being an adult and me saying that, well, it's my money, let me make this decision. actually end up um not having um the money, and just nevertheless laughing at it now. He was right. you know and it wasn't him just looking at charts or anything. Like, he's steady studying. He's looking at the market going down, and I said, well, this is the way the market does. It goes up and down and fluctuates. But he was like, well, this is an average to where we might end up losing majority of our money, which we did. And he was like, see, Dad, I told you should have took it out when I told you to take it out. Probably would have kept majority of it now. And he was right. But, understanding, now he knows risk and reward. You know, it's to the point where he's like, okay, when I invest, I'm gonna do it this way. Like his life insurance. He actually think he's gonna be rich off of the life insurance he has, say when he turned 18. And I was like, no, you're not gonna be rich. You're gonna have this money for this. It's mainly for your death, and it's mainly for you to, pull out and do some things with. And I was like, I wish I would have ended up getting him a universal life insurance when they were first born, and putting the money in by the time they turned 21. Man, they would have been good. Like, they would have had a significant amount in there. They can pull out cash value, do things with it, you know. And I told my son, I was like, now you guys, you're gonna be close into your 20s. I would say 30s, where you start pulling out money and set it up to where you can have so much. He was like, yeah, okay, but those things are not talked about. That's why I told you when I was growing up, life insurance was talked about in my household, not being a burden to people. You know, the whole vehicle in which you can jump in there and take life insurance to a whole nother level. I learned that because I was so young. I didn't get taught that. I didn't get taught that because I was too young to know majority of this stuff. And the people that did know more about life insurance and things of that nature, as far as my great grandmother and my aunts and stuff, I wasn't around them all the time. My great grandmother, that's where I was around her majority of the time because she came and stayed with us at her old age. But at the same time, yeah. But at the same time, you know, she taught so much just from us having conversation, sitting there watching baseball. I did not like baseball. I would like football, deal with basketball, but baseball is not my thing. I sit there and watch Brave game because a lot of elders tend to gravitate to the pastime sport of baseball, and just sit there, just watch it with her. We talked about so many different things. You know, she taught me more evolving into my cooking skills, how to measure things. Cause I was the measuring cup king, I should say. I learned all that. She taught me how to eyeball things. Pinching and shaking, using salt so much, using so much sugar, learning how to eyeball flour. If you estimate that you're going to put this much flour in, look at a cup. This is about a cup size. This is about a teaspoon size, by just shaking it over the food, evolve my cooking skills to the next level. But even like I say, when it comes to finance, you know, having that conversation with, your family, having that conversation with the kids, especially because the kids got a lot going on, and you have to, help those kids get to the next level. And those kids get into the next level, you know, you're the parent. You have to evolve their skills so they can do better in life. And I've always said this: your kids should do better than the parents. At any fault, there's no reason why, I'm in a situation to win and my kids are not. Let's run down this celebrity aisle real quick. 50 Cent and his son. 50 Cent's son is in a position he's in because, say the least, the parenting part. his son was in a position to win through his mother, and over time that connection with him failed. So you couldn't really blame 50 Cent for not being a father that's giving his son the world. You gotta listen. You know, people who has the money, you gotta understand, if I have the money, what is this says? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. So I got so many things I'm dealing with, and then I have to deal with this within my family of amongst my son. That brings envy, brings situations to where it gets out of control. Nevertheless, when it comes down to situations, who wants to spend their time fussing and fighting and dealing with their kids in a certain manner, where they could be teaching them and brightening them, making them better. You know, prime example. Conversation, and he was telling his dad was into real estate. He, you know, passionate about it. He started a organization and enough all these things. And he was like, man, I barely stepping by in the house. And the number one thing I told him, I said, man, your dad had all that information. He never did this, he never did that. I said, did you ever ask him? And that blew his mind. It blew his mind that I said that to him, because when it came down to it, I told him plain and simple. I said, you were young, and he only thought that your mind can only go as far as he think it can go. And that's the thing with our kids. That's why I'm always testing and talking with my boys, when we have these conversations. Okay. Should be about straight now. But overall, what's going on, Alonzo? And I always talking to my boys, just little things, having our conversation, just watching TV together. We have our conversation. So how y'all doing in school? What's going on? The usual. But then have conversations. What do you think you're gonna do with money? What do you think you're gonna do with this when you become an adult? How you gonna handle this situation? You know, just peeping that intellect as a kid now and seeing how their mind evolves, and more or less understanding that, having cousins the same way, you know, that having conversations with them, staying jumping like crazy, having conversations with them doing the same. You know how many times I talked to my cousins and when they were young, and as they got older, one of my cousins now, he tell me, man, you work too much, man. You need to have fun. I said, why not work? I said, I can always make time to enjoy myself, but I can't always people uh, a lot of people kind of let that slip over their head when it comes to situations like that. Yeah, it's this area that I'm in. I should be about good now, but to a point of you eating what you kill, it grants you situation of you getting the job done in a certain way. You know, having a situation to where things that you're doing and providing for your family all predicated on what? You, mainly. And we have these conversations a lot all the time when talking about family, talking about the structure of friends. When are we having these conversations about, putting our kids to the next level, putting our nieces and nephews in position to win? A lot of times we don't have these conversations for the next generation, but oh, they're bad. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. They're doing this, they're doing that. That's the whole point of, the kids being the future. You have to teach them, you know. Like I was going back into my cousin where he said his dad never taught him anything about real estate. I asked him, "Did you even ask him about real estate?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, that's the whole thing as a martial artist. When it comes down to it, sometimes your teacher knows that you're at a level to be taught, you know, some type of death stroke or some type of secret technique. If you're not ready for it, why would they teach it?" And that implemented, a situation to where he had to go and ask his dad, how come he never taught him certain things? And his dad said exactly what I said. I didn't think he was ready. Yeah. A lot of systems we ignore it because, you know, like I said, to a degree, some parents don't know. And there are so many different things that's out here, and the envelope keeps changing. The ball keeps moving. The goalposts keep pushing farther and farther away. I remember the whole point. I didn't understand between chapter 13, chapter 7, all these debt consolidation things, and why do they pay? Why do they don't pay? And, it evolved more or less into a situation to where I'm like, why are the rules changing? Why are the goalposts being moved? Because a lot of people are doing it. Same thing with the housing market. I always talk about like, man, I need me somewhere to stay. I got to get me a house, got to find somewhere to stay. You know, the way the market is right now, I could be on the street. I've seen so many people. I talk to them, we have these conversations, and I talk to them. I'll be like, man, it's so many people moving around now buying these houses, preferably companies. You know, one of the guys I talked to on YouTube, I don't want to really push him out there, say his name like that, but he deals with a lot of investors, and these investors are coming in buying neighborhoods, not buying a house, not buying 10 or few houses, buying neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods with a whopping 100 houses per neighborhood. And there are people that are taking advantage of this. I was just, ear hustling. I was in the store getting my phone fixed one time, and the guy who worked at the store was on the phone with one of his friends, and it was just me and him in the store. So he was just talking freely. You know, I said what's up to him, and presented myself as kind of cool, I guess. So he was talking freely, clowning and cussing and laughing. But the whole thing of it was him and this guy was having this conversation. The guy that he was on the phone with, I think he had about 8 houses, and he was convincing another guy, I think, to a degree, about buying in what they're doing, and he wasn't with it. And so he told the guy, he's like, I got 8 houses, and I think the guy said he had 5 houses on one block. The other guy bought, um, I think 3 houses in that area where he's at. So in total, they had 8 houses just in that area, but it was like I think it was 4 more houses on that street that they needed to buy to have that whole street. And off that whole street, those houses were basically condemned. There were 4 houses that wasn't condemned, but in general, they was looking at, well, if those 4 people move out, we could take all the houses in here and sell them to a developer, and they could take this whole street, tear it down. So essentially, you have a lot of times where people from your own neighborhood are gentrify themselves. I mean, gentrify the neighborhood that they're not even staying in. It's the likeness of the government, this and that, and the shifting. Everything is planned out. And for people to be talking about this and that, I've literally heard it. I've literally talked to people, and and a lot of times, like I said, going into the younger generation, the kids are learning this stuff at a younger age. I've seen people, young kids, come in and talk crazy. There's a YouTuber, young YouTuber. Uh, the guy makes about roughly, I think, 3 million a year, and he was investing in Chattanooga, and they were asking him. They said, "Well, why did you buy a house in Chattanooga and you stay in Chicago?" And he was like, "Well, I didn't just buy one; I bought several because of RI." And they paused him. They said, "What did you just say?" He said, "The RI." He said, "Do you know what the RI is?" He's like, "Yeah, the return on investment." They was like, "Kid, how old are you?" He's like, 15. He's like, "Just turned 15." And they was like, "This guy's PR trained. He's PR ready. He knows all these things." And this is the thing. This guy didn't just wake up learning this stuff as a young kid. His parents put him into this lifestyle. He had wanted to go out here and learn these things. And he said his portfolio is bigger than his parents. It's because he had the money. So with him being a young kid, he wanted to learn how to keep his money. His parents showed him one thing or two things that he invested. Now his portfolio is bigger than his parents. And all it took was him having the hunger and initiative to get the job done. How many kids are putting in that situation to where they want to learn and want to win like that? Prime example, I know a guy now, his daughter is, let's see, my kids are 12. His daughter is, I think, 8 because his son is 10. I think his daughter 8 years old. She has a online store. His daughter was into clothes and ended up getting an online store. She has her own online store selling clothes. The son really ain't figured out what he want to do yet, but his father was like, when he's ready, hey, we running a business. Each one of my kids run a business. These businesses, they can file taxes and pay for certain things on their own. I'm not, putting anything into it as far as the money, just the startup costs and to get everything up and running. I'm gonna let them run the business, put the money to the side for them. He's already setting up a point of billing their credit, all these things, having these conversations. And I'm like, man, I got to take my kids to the next level. You know, having these conversations with my kids. You seen why I bought the candle maker. Like they got into it, wasn't really too interested into it. The candle kit that I bought for them, the rug gun, we couldn't get that thing to work for nothing. I gotta find somebody and talk to somebody about that. And I'm like, that'd be a cool thing to do. Make rugs. You know how many people, excuse me, would love some custom rugs? Have a custom rug with your name, your logo, anything that you have for business, just in your house. That's a conversation when somebody first walked through the door, because you don't see many custom rugs. You don't see rugs with just custom like that. That's a conversation all day, you know. So getting your kids into business, getting your family, prime example, I was talking to one of my friends and we was talking about life insurance. And this is a misunderstanding with most people. I asked him, I said, how much life insurance you got? He was like, man, I ain't got no life insurance. I ain't got no kids, no wife who I'm gonna leave it to. I said, so you don't plan on getting married or doing anything in the future? He was like, yeah. I said, why not have this business now? I said, if you have a chance to get a business now or get it later, which one would you prefer? Oh, well, I'd rather have my business now and everything because I would want to, grow my business. I said, isn't that the same with life insurance? You don't want to grow your life insurance, you know? You don't want to take that life insurance and take it to the next level. Yeah, you're right. I never thought about that. And I said, you're not married, you don't have kids, but what about your niece and nephew? I said, so you mean to tell me you don't have no niece or no nephew that's worth the point of you investing for them? When it comes down to it, a lot of times we have these conversations. And I say, for people that don't have kids, you you don't have no young kid. No kid is worth you improving their life. No kid. Well, yeah, you right. But that's the thing. It takes us as parents or, family members or even friends, you know. It was to a point before when I had my first policy, I didn't have nobody, no kids or nothing. My cousins, they were, acting wild with their dad. I had my policy up under my friend's son, my godson. I took the policy. I said, okay, it wasn't nothing but a small policy at the time because I didn't know how to buy life insurance. All I knew was I needed life insurance, so it was a small term policy, 30-year term, and if anything ever happened, guy would have got $10,000. Of course, he couldn't touch it till he turned 18, but still, you know, he would have got $10,000. And it's like, when it comes down to it, we don't have these conversations with our kids. We don't get to a point of understanding because we don't, think our kids are ready. You got to have small talks with kids. You got to get kids in position to be understanding that, hey, any moment's notice, you you're going to be in position to know to win. Like I tell my kids, if anything ever happened to me, first off, I want you to be there for your mom, and you guys might have more than most kids. So how are you going to handle this situation? Are you going to take all your money? You going to buy some cars, buy some clothes, then be broke, or are you going to invest? That's why I'm always talking to my kids about bettering themselves, bettering their finance, putting money in stocks and stuff like that. Long term. Don't try nothing short term. You want something that's long term that can last you. Even Sweet Thumb, where we're talking about buying toys. With this situation, my son's now in a position they finna get ready to sell their um what is it Jurassic Park toys. Now the crazy part is I already got a buyer for them because my brother ended up buying my boys one year some what was the name of that company? Uh Imagine. There's a company called Imagine Toys where all the toys have like big heads and they're like oversized or they're like real like for little infant kids that are like from I would want to say from three or four to like 8 years old. Buy you sugar. What's going on? Now, with those toys they bought, it was like a blue for Jurassic World or Jurassic Park with a big head. And the body was kind of a little small, had a big tail, but a big head. They didn't like that because they liked the original Jurassic Park toys, and I got them all kind of those toys when they were young because they both were into Jurassic World. They both like dinosaurs. My first twin, well the second twin, he liked cars. So we went into that. Well, a lot of times I got him a lot of Hot Wheels, collectibles and stuff. And to this day, like he was so into Tesla. When I explained to him about Tesla, he wants to own a Tesla dealership when he get older. And I told him, I said, well, you bad in math. You gotta get your money up, man, because if you want to own a Tesla dealership, you gotta actually get into money aspect because you don't want to overbuy on your product. You don't want to overspend on contracts. So got him a tutor for that. That's another thing we don't invest. If our kids are behind, the free tutoring is at school. But if the free tutoring don't work, sometimes you got to come out the pocket, work an extra job. That's why the kids are the future. I constantly get on them about learning in school, but at a pace that kids don't get it, you have to take that next step and evolve. But I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here. I've been on here for a minute, kind of a little bit over my time, but more or less invest into your kids' future. They'll thank you for it. And I always talk about life insurance. I always talking about getting a house because of this. And I always say this, the main reason about the life insurance. You don't want to have a reset. Your kids not having any type of life insurance that you bought or put in position to them, it's a reset. Unfortunately, there are many, 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 many people that have a reset in life. If something ever happens to your parents, you will literally sit here and have nothing. You know how many people call their parents, borrow money, and depend on their parents to get them out of a situation, a jam, or anything? You know, say the least. If something ever happened to your parents and they don't leave you any money, who are you gonna call? Not Ghostbusters. But at the same time, though, you don't have nobody to count on anymore. You don't have no parents. Say the least. There are some people that can still work with you. I know this lady, her uncle. She got locked up one time. You know, and the uncle slapped the credit card and said, "Hey, go get my niece out of jail. If I need to come down, I'll do that. But go get her out. You know, no problem. Hey, we'll work the money situation out later. She can't stay in there. She got to go. She didn't have her parents, but more or less, how many family members will do that? So that's why I say you want to leave money for your kids. In general, you want to teach them how to use their money when you leave it too. That's the whole aspect of I'm always talking about this life insurance being a reset. I don't want to sit here and have a situation to the reset of my kids to where I'm like, man, my son don't know this, my daughter don't know this. Like, no, I want to encourage them to do better. I want to teach them as many things as I know and beyond. If I don't know something, if I want my son to get into banking, I will go look for a banker to teach them. If somebody wants to learn the loan process on buying a house, prime example, a lot of people don't talk about this lady, but she does some phenomenal work. Love Dorsey, when she talk about relationships and things, but she has some daughters, and she has a daughter that's going to school for finance. She has a daughter, that's interested in law. And she say, once I learn, get my daughters in these positions and learn the aspect of every little corner, I have these things that I need to know in these industries taken care of. And I can pursue things at a higher rate to make my money go farther. Now that's putting your kids in line for greatness. Yeah. Well, with that being said, shout out to everybody that came through. And I keep saying this, I'm a YouTuber, so like, hit the sub, go for things. All right, right there, I got cut off a little bit. But with that being said, shout out to everybody that came through. You know, hit the like, everything on your way out. But you know what I always say, we here and we gone.